What if, the most common, universally accepted piece of life advice you hear, something like just be yourself, is actually the exact thing preventing you from reaching your highest potential?
Right. Or, flip that around entirely. What if the most revered spiritual wisdom in human history, the instruction to lose your ego or give up yourself, is the precise reason you might be struggling to manage your career, pay your rent, or just maintain basic relationships?
Yeah, that's exactly the paradox we are looking at. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are examining this massive, glaring contradiction that honestly sits squarely at the center of how we are all told to navigate life.
It really does.
I mean, modern psychology, career coaches, pop culture, they all constantly broadcast this message to, accept who you are. Lean into your unique traits. Find your authentic self.
Right. But then we turn to the world's great spiritual traditions, and they present the total inverse of that. They suggest that the ultimate goal, like the highest peak of human existence, requires completely dismantling that identity.
Well,
In those traditions, the ego is framed not as something to be discovered, but as a total obstacle to be destroyed.
it's a huge disconnect.
Mhm.
And to navigate this kind of philosophical maze, we are analyzing a really dense, fascinating text by a writer named Feng.
Oh, yes.
This piece, which was translated by Kinyu, was written recently on November 15, 2023, and the title just lays the problem out plainly. It is called, Should One Adhere to Being Oneself or Give Up Being Oneself?
It's such a great title. And the author essentially constructs this essay as a philosophical stress test, if you will.
A stress test, I like that.
Yeah, the text lays out the strongest possible case for both sides of this paradox, and it treats them not just as like competing opinions, but as conflicting laws of reality. The goal is to see if these two wildly different instructions can somehow coexist in a unified framework.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start by diving into the author's initial argument, which really builds a case for, well, biological determinism.
Exactly. Before we even touch the spiritual paradox, the text demands we look at why the premise of being yourself isn't just some motivational poster slogan.
Right, it's not just a bumper sticker.
No, not at all. The essay frames it as a hard, undeniable physical law. And to establish this groundwork, the author references an article they wrote just 2 days prior, so on November 13th, 2023, titled, Great Matters Are Decided by Fate, Small Matters Are Decided by People.
Great title again?
Yeah, and in that piece, the author vigorously champions the concept of adhering to oneself, and they actually bypass human psychology entirely and start right in the natural world.
Yeah, the essay points to the strict impossibility of transcending your own species. The author uses a series of really vivid metaphors here, like a crow wanting to become a parrot,
Right.
or a sheep wanting to become a wolf, or a fly wanting to become a bee. It's impossible.
And taking the crow and the parrot as an example, the text explores the actual mechanics of envy in nature. Because, a parrot is celebrated by humans.
Oh, for sure. They get all the attention.
Exactly. It receives attention for its bright plumage, it gets fed seeds for mimicking human speech, and a crow might observe those outcomes and actively desire them. But the essay argues that the crow simply lacks the vocal cords, the genetic code, and the evolutionary history to achieve that reality.
Just doesn't have the hardware. So the crow ends up expending all its caloric and mental energy fighting its own nature, rather than just utilizing its innate intelligence to forage and thrive as a really smart crow.
It's a waste of energy.
A massive waste. The text suggests that trying to transcend your hardware doesn't make you a superior being. It just makes you a miserable, failing version of something else.
And the author pushes this concept even further by looking at hierarchies within a single species, pointing specifically to ants and bees.
Oh, the beehive example is great.
Yeah, in a beehive, roles are biologically locked. An ordinary worker bee cannot simply decide it wants the privileges of the queen.
No amount of positive thinking is going to change that.
Right. It cannot consume enough royal jelly retroactively or, work hard enough to alter its predetermined biological caste. The hardware is entirely fixed. The most efficient action for that worker bee is just to fulfill its specific localized function.
So the essay then takes this rather unyielding view of nature and applies it directly to human beings, which I think is where it gets a little uncomfortable for people.
Oh, absolutely. Because we often like to imagine we are entirely blank slates.
Yes, we think we are completely exempt from the rules governing the bees and the crows. However, the text argues that humans also possess unique, entirely predetermined traits that dictate our parameters.
The author lists several variables here. Innate gifts, for instance. Some individuals possess a natural aptitude for complex mathematics, while others possess, melodious singing voices.
Right. You either have pitch or you don't.
Exactly. And the text also points to environmental and physical realities, like the privilege of the family you were born into, or
Yeah.
just physical appearance. Some are conventionally beautiful, others are not. The argument here is that every single person is a completely unique, locked combination of these unchangeable variables.
And this concept becomes particularly striking when the author applies it to the realm of business. The essay notes that two people can execute the exact same business model in the exact same era, targeting the exact same demographic.
Yes.
And one individual will become wildly successful and the other will face total bankruptcy.
And the author attributes this divergence to the invisible variables of the self. This is why plagiarism and imitation just fail, because you are only copying the external actions of a successful person.
You only see the surface.
Right. You cannot copy their innate risk tolerance, their subconscious timing, their personal charisma, or even the specific way their mind processes failure. You cannot copy the underlying self that made the strategy work in the first place.
That makes me think of, like, running software. It is like trying to run an iOS app on an Android phone. The hardware just isn't built for it.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You can download the code, you can force the program to open, but the underlying operating systems are fundamentally incompatible. The app will drain the battery, freeze the screen, and eventually crash the entire phone.
It just ruins the device.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The hardware simply wasn't built to process those specific commands. But I do have to push back on the author's premise here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
If our parameters are so strictly predetermined by genetics and fate, does the essay suggest that personal effort is entirely pointless? Like, are we just trapped in our coding?
What's fascinating here is the author actually anticipates that exact sense of fatalism and directly counters it. The text explicitly states that learning and effort are crucial. The distinction lies in the application of that effort.
Okay, meaning you don't apply effort to changing the hardware, you apply it to optimizing the software you already have.
Precisely. The goal isn't to hack your Android phone to run iOS apps, right? The goal is to update your Android system to its absolute peak performance.
Oh, I see.
The essay argues that learning should be used to sharpen your inherent traits, to define your own boundaries, and to maximize your specific utility, rather than squandering your energy trying to emulate the hardware of another person.
That presents a highly logical, practically bulletproof argument for the necessity of being yourself. You must accept your limitations to maximize your actual strengths.
Absolutely.
But this leads us directly into the second half of the essay, which introduces the core paradox we started with. If adhering to oneself is the foundation of success in reality, why did this exact same author publish a piece 2 years earlier on March 24, 2021, titled, "Giving Up Being Oneself is the Superior Way of Cultivation"?
Yeah, the text pivots drastically here, moving away from biological determinism and straight into the heights of spiritual philosophy.
It's a huge shift.
It really is. And to demonstrate that giving up oneself is not merely an abstract concept, but a universal spiritual law, the author invokes 3 major historical figures. They analyze their teachings to show this incredible consensus across completely different traditions.
The essay begins this section with the teachings of Christ Jesus, right?
Yes. The author quotes the biblical instruction, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it."
The operative word there is deny.
Deny.
Not discover, not optimize, but deny the self. The mechanism described in that quote is a complete inversion of the biological survival instinct we just analyzed with the crows and the bees.
Totally backwards.
Right. The biological imperative is self-preservation, but the spiritual imperative presented here is self-abandonment.
And the text highlights the paradox within that very quote. The act of desperately trying to save one's life, protecting the ego, hoarding resources, defending the self.
Which we all do.
Constantly. That is the exact mechanism that causes one to lose the true essence of life. Conversely, surrendering that biological clinging grants access to a higher state of existence.
The author then shifts from the Middle East to ancient India, bringing in the perspective of Buddha Shakyamuni. The essay points to the Buddhist principle that if a bodhisattva thoroughly understands the dharma of no self, he is a true bodhisattva.
And to really understand the weight of this, we have to look at what the dharma of no self actually entails.
Right. What does that mean practically?
It is the philosophical realization that the self we spend so much time defending doesn't actually exist as a permanent, solid entity. It is merely a temporary collection of thoughts, feelings, and physical matter.
Just passing cloud.
Exactly. And the text implies that clinging to this illusion of a permanent identity is the root cause of human suffering. A bodhisattva reaches enlightenment specifically by seeing through that illusion.
Then the essay locks this argument in with a third perspective, quoting Celestial Laozi, the foundational figure of philosophical Taoism. And this quote struck me as deeply psychological.
It really is.
Laozi asks, is what we value and what we fear within ourselves? We have fears because we have a self.
The mechanism Laozi describes here is so profound. Because if you construct an identity like a reputation, a career status, a self-image,
You suddenly have a perimeter.
exactly, a perimeter that you must constantly defend. Every fear you experience, fear of public embarrassment, fear of financial ruin, fear of mortality, it all stems directly from the existence of that ego.
Because if there is no self to possess a reputation, then a damaged reputation means literally nothing.
Right.
If there is no self to hoard wealth, poverty is no longer a threat. The ego is basically the target on your back.
It's the only thing that can be injured. And the quote from Laozi concludes by stating that only someone who values the entire world as if it were their own self is fit to govern or care for the world. Because if you lack a personal ego to satisfy, you cannot be corrupted, and you can act purely for the benefit of the whole.
So the author synthesizes these three massive historical paradigms into one sharp, uncompromising conclusion. Only by being unselfish can a person fulfill their wishes, and only by being selfless can a person truly accomplish themselves.
The text deliberately sets these two realities on a total collision course.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the contradiction isn't just apparent, it feels completely irreconcilable.
It feels like a mistake at first glance.
Yeah, because the first half of the essay mandates that we must accept our individual traits, our predetermined fate, and our unique biology. The second half mandates that possessing an individual self is the root of all fear and the primary barrier to enlightenment.
Right.
So the text tells us to simultaneously perfect our hardware and completely destroy the concept of hardware altogether. How do we reconcile accepting your hardware with destroying the concept of hardware?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is actually employing a classic dialectical method here.
Okay, what does that mean in this context?
So, by presenting a thesis, which is be yourself, and an antithesis, which is give up yourself, that are both demonstrably true in their respective contexts, the text forces the reader to realize that our current framework is insufficient. The contradiction literally forces us to seek a higher synthesis.
And the essay provides that synthesis by introducing the principle of tailored guidance.
Yes.
The author posits that truth is not a static object floating in a vacuum. Truth is highly contextual. Its validity depends entirely on the aptitude, the environment, and the developmental stage of the person receiving it.
And to illustrate the mechanics of this, the author provides a very practical analogy regarding age, which I think is so helpful.
Yeah, walk us through that.
Imagine observing a 5-year-old child. If you tell that child, go play, run around, do whatever you want, you are delivering profound, developmentally appropriate truth. That child actually needs unstructured play to grow.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. But the essay asks us to imagine delivering that exact same instruction to a 30-year-old adult drowning in mortgage payments or an 80-year-old elder who requires physical rest.
Right. If you tell them to just go play, it transforms from profound wisdom into destructive nonsense.
Exactly. The words didn't change. The instruction didn't change. The truth value changed solely because the recipient changed.
The text also layers an architectural analogy on top of this to really solidify the concept of varying standards. A master builder constructing a house knows that wood cannot be treated uniformly.
Right. You can't just treat every piece of wood the same.
No. Beams must be guided by beam standards or adhere to the structural standards required for a beam. Pillars must carry the weight according to pillar standards. Rafters follow rafter standards.
And if a builder attempts to impose a uniform standard on every single piece of timber, like forcing a thin rafter to bear the load of a central pillar, the entire structure will collapse.
It would be a disaster.
A total disaster. The material must be treated according to its specific function within the whole.
So bringing this back to the core paradox, the author delivers the unifying resolution, the instruction to be yourself, to stop fantasizing about being someone else, to stop imitating others, to accept your biological and environmental lot in life, is the correct, structurally sound instruction for the general public.
Yes.
It is the necessary operating manual for ordinary people navigating the practical material world.
However, For a wise person, a saint, or someone actively working to transcend worldly desires and adhere to heavenly standards, the instruction completely changes.
Because they're playing a different game.
Exactly. For them, giving up being oneself is the correct standard. They have moved beyond the need to optimize their personal hardware and are now attempting to integrate into a much larger universal framework without fixating on personal insights or their own ego.
So what does this all mean? I kind of view it like playing a complex video game.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, so level 1 advice is learn your specific character's moves. Figure out your stats, your weaknesses, be yourself. You have to master the basics.
Right, you can't skip that.
You absolutely can't. But level 100 advice, when you've mastered all that, is forget the individual moves and just flow with the code of the game matrix. Give up yourself.
This raises an important question, though, and it is perhaps the most difficult challenge presented by the entire text.
What's that?
How to honestly assess our own level of aptitude? Like, which level are we currently playing on? Because the essay implies a significant danger here.
The danger of getting it wrong.
Precisely. If an ordinary person, someone who hasn't yet figured out how to pay their bills, manage their temper, or stop imitating their neighbors, attempts to adopt the dharma of no self, the results are usually disastrous.
Oh yeah. They aren't going to become a Zen master. They are going to become deeply irresponsible.
It is the textbook definition of spiritual bypassing, using high-level spiritual concepts as an excuse to avoid doing the basic, unglamorous work of organizing your actual life.
Right, like saying money is an illusion just because you don't want to get a job.
Exactly. But the reverse is also true. If someone who is genuinely ready to shed their ego and transcend the material world gets bogged down in optimizing their personal brand or fiercely defending their unique identity,
They stunt their own spiritual evolution.
they do. The author's ultimate framework insists that a true master diagnoses the student before prescribing the truth. For some, the medicine they desperately need is to find themselves.
And for others, the medicine is to lose themselves entirely. Which brings this entirely philosophical discussion right to your doorstep.
To the listener.
Yeah. Where are you, honestly, on the spectrum right now? Are you currently in a phase where you need to rigorously apply the standard of the ordinary person?
Do you need to stop staring at the parents getting fed seeds, except that you are a crow, and focus all your energy on being the most effective crow possible in your career and life?
Or have you successfully stabilized that material foundation? Are you beginning to feel the profound friction of the ego? Are you aiming for that higher spiritual standard, trying to shed your ego and align with a broader, selfless reality?
It is a diagnostic test that only you can administer to yourself.
It really is. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today, something that builds on the source material we've been unpacking.
Okay, let's hear it.
If giving up yourself is the standard for the wise, and being yourself is the standard for the ordinary, what happens when we try to skip steps?
Oh, wow.
Can you truly give up a self that you haven't even fully figured out how to be yet? Maybe you have to fully become yourself before you have anything worth giving up.
That is a concept that requires some deep, solitary reflection.
It certainly is. Thank you for joining us as we unpack this incredible source material. Keep questioning the advice you are given, keep exploring your own hardware, and we will catch you next time on The Deep Dives.